everybody. Welcome back to the Get Healthy Tampa Bay podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kerry Reller. This is part 2 of my conversation with Dr. Jaspreet Dhau, where we're talking all about indoor air quality. In the last episode, we cover what's actually in the air inside our homes and how it can impact your health. Today, we're shifting into what you actually can do about it. We're going to talk about ventilation, filtration, air purifiers, and practical steps you can take to improve the air your family is breathing every day. And if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I highly recommend going back because that really sets the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. So let's jump back in. We've explained a lot of things about the different types of, I don't want to call them allergens, irritants, chemicals, all of these things that can be detrimental to our indoor air quality and health. And then how HEPA filters help, how HVAC helps, how the PICO technology helps. What are some other next steps that someone might take if they're trying to improve their air quality starting today?
Source. That is something that someone needs to pay attention to. If there is something which is contributing to these pollutants in their home, they need to address that. And going back to the temperature and the humidity, especially the relative humidity in houses. In Florida, that is a major concern, right? It's a hot and humid weather that we get a lot of rain. And if our houses are not managed in terms of relative humidity, then we may have a higher humidity. When I say higher humidity above, let's say a 60%. If they have that, then the growth of mold spores becomes very prominent. There are leaks, and the mold spores not only come from the relative humidity, but also from the leaks, whether it's in the shower or in the kitchen area or some other areas. If you have a water leak, address that water leak immediately. Do not allow it to go beyond 4 days. 4 days are done, you already have a mold problem in your house. So one needs to be wary about the presence of mold in the house and the conditions which are conducive for the mold growth and some of the other microorganisms. Same is true for viruses. And you mentioned about dust mite. Dust mites also like humid conditions inside our houses. So controlling humidity is a critical aspect of having a better indoor air for us to breathe, but also for us to have an environment which is a mold-free or microorganism-free.
Yeah, those are definitely recommendations that I make to my patients regarding the dust mite and mold, with keeping the humidity and the temperature at a reasonable amount as well in the home. Yeah, gosh, we've gone through so much very important things. I don't know if we missed anything that you wanted to discuss more.
Yeah, the carbon dioxide level too.
Okay, yes, please discuss that.
My bad, I missed it on the ventilation side of things. The reason that we have a certain recommended air changes is to regulate the amount of carbon dioxide that we breathe. We exhale. It impacts the cognitive ability, it impacts the productivity, and it also impacts the sleep. So we have to ensure if there are a lot of people in our houses that it is well ventilated. There's another one, when to open the door. If there are a lot of people in my house, then I will open the windows to have fresh air. So to regulate carbon dioxide is also crucial. Carbon monoxide is another pollutant which is critical, and a lot of people know about it. It's fatal. It's deadly. And for that reason, any activity that we do it, I mentioned about unvented fireplace. That's a no-go thing. And if you have it, you need to ensure that the windows are open. You don't allow carbon monoxide to go up. Nitrogen dioxide is another that you can get with an unvented fireplace. So if you have a fireplace, ensure the house is properly ventilated.
Do the fake fireplaces do anything?
The fake
electric?
I believe as long as it's properly cleaned and the dust is not settling down on that should be fine. But the fake fireplaces may have some heating elements, if I'm right. So if there is a heat, that heat may generate some ultrafine particles. I mentioned about the cooking, either right? So the gas-powered stoves is a source for particles, the ultrafine particles, for organic gases, formaldehyde, acetaldehyde, for inorganic gases, the NOx and the SOx. But the induction is a source of ultrafine particles. So anything that you have it in your house, just ensure that they are used properly according to the recommended conditions or the recommended operating conditions that you operate them.
Yeah, I have heard that there might be a trend moving towards getting more electric stoves to improve the indoor air quality as well. I asked
Yeah.
about the electric fireplace thing because we have one of those. We
Yeah,
don't.
again, the temperature thing,
Yeah.
just be wary about that. And the gas stove, gas powered. At my house, we have induction. But
Mhm.
when we had hurricane a couple of years ago, or was it Irma or Helene? We lost power for almost like 7 days. The whole community lost the power
Yeah.
that we live in there, lost power for 7 days. And some of my friends they said, okay, we are not going to have it the other time around. So we'll shift to the gas powered stoves to get
Mhm.
the gas connection and all that. The only thing that I told them that, yeah, you can have it much cleaner on that side. So there is nothing against it, but just ensure that you have a proper ventilation. Just ensure that you have the right range hood above the stove. So people who are using gas powered stoves, ensure that there is a proper ventilation connected to a duct which has the lower pressure drop. And if you have an induction, then ultrafine particles, ventilation is still needed. And cooking, when we fry food, when we boil, even boiling water generates ultrafine particles, either right? So just ensure that you have a proper ventilation.
Yeah, my kids have started cooking more, and I think our ventilation thing is so loud, it's hard to hear each other over it. So I'll have to make sure we continue to use it, even though I can't hear anything that they're saying when they're cooking. But yeah.
You brought a very valid point. One reason that people don't use the range hood that often, or probably at the right setting to have a good ventilation, is the noise level. That it is very, it's, means it's disturbing, it's irritating either, right? When it is really loud. The range hoods are, there are specifications, are certified to have a certain ventilation rate at an acceptable noise level. And I think, and just check it. I remember the certifying agency is called HVI. I don't know the full
Mhm.
form. So just look for whether when you're installing those range hoods, whether the range hood that you're buying is certified or not. There may be other agencies too. I don't know much. And over there, they mention about the flow rate. That's in the CFM. And I think the specification is 100 CFM and above, or even 150 or 200 is pretty good, but I think it's 100 CFM and above. And the noise level is probably around about 3 sohms, which is like around about 44 decibel or something like that. So if you are thinking of installing a range hood, go for a range hood which has a certified specification
Mhm.
so that you can look into both on the airflow and the noise side. But I can bear noise. I can plug my ear, but I'll definitely need to have a good ventilation, especially if I'm cooking with a lot of oil or some other stuff in there, or I'm
Mhm.
burning food. I need to remove
Mhm.
those particles from the air.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to re-emphasize this to my children who have started cooking, but that's helpful.
Yeah.
Are all air purifiers created equal? It's a myth busting.
No,
No.
not at all. It's different, is it right? They're not equal. So, what changes in an air purifier, or what is an air purifier? And long back when I joined Molecule, there was a lecture, and I come from academia. I'm a professor, and you can clearly see, and so I like to explain things. I go overboard, so just live with me on that. So, air purifier is a device, and the device has a fan, and the second component of air purification is filter. When you combine these two together, that is an air purification system. And once you can take it from one room to another, and that's where it becomes a portable air purification system. In a device, you have a fan, and the fan will have a certain speed with which it can regulate the air or allow the air to pass through a filter at a certain rate. And the unit is called the CFM, cubic feet per minute, which is the volume of air it passes through it. So many of the air purifiers have this varied speed. And I'm talking about the maximum speed. I'm not talking about the lower speed. They have different speed rating, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you go up, the speed rating goes up. So there are air purifiers which may have only 50 CFM, and there are air purifiers who may have 300, 400 CFM. So one is this variation. Faster the fan is, the higher the volume of air that passes through it. So the quickly that you're going to improve the air quality. So the faster it goes, the more air volume it circulates. So that is one aspect. The other is the filtration aspect. And in the filtration aspect, there are two things in there. One is the particle, and that's where the HEPA comes into picture, or any other, what I call the physical filtration filter, which are rated according to their MERV ratings from, as I said, from 6 to 13 or even 16. A 16 MERV rated filter has an filtration efficiency of 95% for a particle size of zero point 0.3 micron and above. So that is the physical filtration aspect. So the various purifiers which are available on the market, they will have different mechanical or electrostatic physical filtration system in there. Anywhere between, I think there were MERV 11, MERV 13, 16, and the higher end, the most higher end is the HEPA, which is the MERV 17. And then is this physical filtration is good for particulate matter, but they're not good for the VOCs. So what is there for the VOCs? Most of the air purifiers have what is called carbon to remove those VOCs. So that is there. And in that case scenario, what type of carbon that they are using? It's an activated carbon. There are various types in there. What is its capacity, and the amount of a carbon that is in there determines the capability of that air purifier to remove VOCs, and all carbon gets saturated after time. For molecule, what we have is that in addition to HEPA and carbon, we have a PICO, that anything which passes the carbon, anything which passes the HEPA gets onto the PICO and gets degraded into carbon dioxide and water, which improves the life of our carbon filter, which improves the overall air quality and provides an extra layer of protection. And when I say extra layer for protection, I'm just not saying because I believe in it, but because we have done the study. Initially, I told you about a preclinical trial. So we looked into what an HEPA alone will do, what HEPA plus PICO alone will do. And that was a study which was specific to allergic reactions. In that case scenario, we used cat dander, which is more prominent and one of the most stickiest allergen which is present indoor. And what we found, and we looked into the biomarkers, we looked into the lungs, we looked into the respiratory tract, the upper and the lower. And what we found was with the HEPA alone, yes, those biomarkers decreased compared to a positive control, means a positive control had a contaminated air. So the biomarker decreased, but with PICO and HEPA, that biomarker further decreased by a factor of 1.5. So if I remember, and again, more than me, we looked into the ball cells and the eosinophilia cells in the respiratory tract. And what we found was compared to a positive control, the HEPA filter reduced that eosinophilia by a factor of half, and the PICO plus HEPA further reduced it by 1.5 on that. Adding the PICO layer provides an additional protection layer for us to further improve the indoor quality, and for that reason have a better health impact.
Yeah, you mentioned the eosinophils. So that's something that we look as like a blood marker, even if they did biopsies and things like that. And it's an allergy blood marker as well. People who have really bad allergies, sometimes allergic asthma, we'll pull those numbers and they can be very high. And it's something we can monitor or give fancy medicines to help get them better. Clearly these things that you're describing are decreasing that. So that's, like you said, like really clinical evidence, clinical, but the data, and then transpiring that to a patient who is able to decrease their eosinophils, that would be good clinical evidence, because I'm sure their symptoms would be way less.
Yes. We looked into the mucus cells too on that. So there's significant reductions on the generation of the mucus cell. Again, there is a story here too. This was done with Florida International University, a researcher over there. And the way we designed this study, I asked them to run the purifier with HEPA and with PICO plus HEPA both together, and not to introduce the subjects in there until we see the pollutants inside that chamber below the detection limit by the most sophisticated technique. We're not going to introduce this. We ensure that according to the best analytical method, that is cleaner. I want to see, is there still more to it? And I say the indoor air quality is such a difficult thing because indoor air or air in general is a very complex mixture of gases, particles, organic, inorganic, and all that. And for that reason, the treatment that is needed to improve the air quality and specifically indoor air quality is also very complex. There is not one single solution to have a better air quality. It's a combination of all that. So you need absorption, you need particle filtration, and you need the destruction.
So I know that we talked about having a unit in the bedroom. Do you need a unit in every single room? And does it have to be does the size of the unit matter? What would you say to that?
Yes, one, it's it's a money thing either, right? Can I afford? If I can afford it, yes. I
Okay.
need that because it's a targeted approach. I need an air purifier in the room where I or my family members sit, live, sleep, whatever they're doing. In the living room, in the bedroom, in the kitchen area, specifically, I need that. So if possible, yes, in every room. If not, then I will take that air purifier wherever I go. The molecular air purifier have what is called an auto protect mode. It has sensors inside which senses the quality of the air, and you can buy sensors from outside too. And for that reason, I can determine what is the air quality in my bedroom or what is the air quality in my kitchen, or I can also through app look into at what time that the indoor air quality deteriorates in my bedroom or deteriorates in my kitchen and take my portable air purifier there. So that's also is doable.
That's cool. How many do you have in your house?
I have to count. Three, one in my daughter's house room, one in my son's room, and there's one right there in the kitchen. And
Yeah.
there three in there, but there are two lying idle where we have a guest room too. So whenever a guest comes, so we turn it on too. So there are three in there. And you also asked me about the size. So while choosing a portable air purifier, the room in which you want to place it, you need to know the size. And many of the air purifiers are rated according to their sizes. And again, that is related to the number of air changes or the volume of the air that it passes through and also the noise it makes. I can bear a noise in the kitchen while my exhaust is also running, but that is not possible when I'm sleeping in the right. So it needs a quieter. So the choice of the air purifier depends where you want to place. But all these air purifiers comes with different speed settings, and you can get to a quieter mode or you can get to the loudest mode when you're not in the house and you want the air inside to be house to be clean.
Before I ask any final questions, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
One thing that I want to add and probably re-emphasize, in fact, I've said it in there, that don't take indoor air quality for granted. It impacts your health, and every person has the capability to do something about it. There are many studies which are done based upon the socioeconomic status of the people, and there are many who can't afford ventilation is there for you. The removing the source of pollution is there for you. And initially, when I said the leakages in the house and the conditions conducive for mold growth, there is something that everyone can do about it. So everyone has the control over the indoor air quality, probably not about the outdoor quality. I don't have the control in, but indoor air quality, definitely I have the control over there. And everyone needs to be wary about it, and everyone needs to do their bit so that the quality of the indoor air is improved. And that's the message that I like to give to everyone. When I talk to my friends or when I talk in the center, it really amazes me that how granted that I have taken for it. And to me, that is unacceptable. Please do something about the indoor air.
I think a couple years ago, I did an episode about Water Street And this podcast is a lot about health and wellness. And the new buildings that they're building on Water Street in Tampa had gone through this great initiative to make a wellness area. And one of the things they did focus on was the indoor air quality. So I feel like listeners could go back to that one and listen and see if some of these new things may apply to that conversation. But you answered the question I was going to ask you anyway, which is like, what is the listeners like one thing they can take away from this conversation? What would you want it to be? And I feel like you just answered that. So where do you think that indoor air quality is going to go in the next 5 to 10 years?
I see air cleaners in every house, in every room. That's what I see in there. I see there was a revolution about water purification, water quality, the water that I get in my house. Again, I'm coming from India. For us to buy water or have a water purification system was something like unthinkable. But now most of the houses in India has a water purification system, or in general, somewhere in the public, there is a water purification system in there. It's a revolution that has happened. And I'm so very glad that people are aware of the quality of the water that they breathe, that they drink, and the impact it has on their health, both on the acute and the chronic side. I see the same thing happening for the air. I see the same thing happening for the indoor air. So my wish, desire, or whatever you call it, or my vision is that the next decade will be for doing quality research, extensive research for indoor air quality, for improving indoor air quality. More science-based research will be done, more people will be involved in there, and we'll get more technologies which will further improve the indoor air or overall the air quality all around us. So I see a lot of happening in the next decade because that is the need of the hour.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. I think we need it, and I agree. And you mentioned something earlier on about like the food supply. I think we shouldn't be taking that one for granted either. I mean, whereas we've done better since the earlier days of getting sick from foods, like they do a pretty good job with that from acute sickness, right? But the chronic sickness is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about that today, though. Yeah, obviously. Anyway, so if anybody wants to learn more about Molecule or you, where should they go?
Yeah, one is on my LinkedIn. My name is very unique, Jaspreet Dhau. So if you just Google it, you will get it. There's Google Scholars available where the list of my publications is available there. And from time to time, I write articles, blog articles, and also scientific papers. Like some of the studies that I've done it, clinical or preclinical, are available. One is a Nature's publication called Scientific Report. Then there are elsewhere journals, Environmental Science and Technology, Chemospheres. So if you just go on the Google Scholar and put my name in there, you will get it. Molecule has a dedicated website called molecule.com, and over there we have contents, scientific contents, and also our blog articles. So you can see it there. And from time to time, we publish new articles, especially during the allergy seasons, that the tips that are available for people during the allergy season, what they need to be doing it. You have to It's a preventive measure. You have to do it before it hits you in there. So those kind of articles are available on our websites. And we do some webinars. Of late, I haven't been involved that much, but especially during COVID times, there were like 5 or 6 webinars that we did it with doctors, with students, and with household people. And one thing which Molecule has done from day one, even before me joining, and what really attracted me to the Molecule, is generating scientific awareness about indoor air quality. Molecule has done a lot of educational stuff on that, and that is available on our website, which is molecule.com, and it's with K's, MOLEKULE.
Awesome. Yeah, we will include all that in the show notes. And I should also disclose, I don't even know if you know this, but I am an affiliate with Molecule, and we do have one in our office as well. And I try to show patients so that they can appreciate it. And I do realize it's a little bit more expensive than a standard different like HEPA filter that we discussed, but I think that it is the step up in like the future, like you were saying. So I do try to encourage it, but realize obviously a price difference with the two, but it is well worth it. From everything that we've talked today, I truly believe that as well. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. This was a lot of fun. I definitely learned a ton, as always, and I love that part about hosting the podcast. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll put all that information in the show notes, and everybody stay tuned next week for next week's episode.
Thank you very much for having me here.